When the media noise finally faded, there was only silence. And in that silence, at last, came a clearer echo of what truly unfolded in the final moments of Heche's life. The truth rarely arrives with drama. It slips in quietly, long after the shouting stops, when there's no one left to blame and no one left to defend. And was born in May of 1969 in a small town in Ohio, into a family that, from the outside, looked like the picture of Christian virtue. To the neighbors, they were simply a decent, God-fearing household. But to N, home was a locked door, behind which lived a monster. Not a metaphorical one, but a very real man. Her father, Donald Joe Heche, was a man of failed schemes and restless ambitions, constantly chasing a dream of quick riches. Wherever the family moved, and they moved often, the shadows of the past always followed, heavy and inescapable. And grew up learning to read the room before she ever understood what it meant. She learned to track her father's moods, decode her mother's voice, and sense the right moments to vanish into silence. In adulthood, she would reflect, "We were living in a bedroom in someone's church house. We had been evicted. I was working as a waitress at a dinner theater. I dreamed of being on stage, not serving plates." When she was 13, her world collapsed. Her father died, not from an accident, nor from a fightable disease, but from complications related to AIDS, and knew exactly where that diagnosis came from. She knew far too much. Years later, in a raw interview with Larry King, she would reveal what the public never imagined. Her father was a closeted homosexual. Not just closeted, but recklessly so. He was a very promiscuous man, she said then, holding back the storm inside her. "We knew about his lifestyle. We just knew. But fate has no brakes once it starts crashing." 3 years later, death came again, this time for her brother. He was only 18 when he died in a violent car crash. Was it a warning? A glimpse into how his own journey might end? Back then, she didn't ask. She only wanted to escape. And then, a door opened. A talent scout spotted her during a school play. A flick of fate's wand, and suddenly, and had a shot at a new life. She auditioned for As the World Turns, and to her own surprise, landed the role with ease. Felt like the suffering might finally be behind her. But just as she stepped forward, the door slammed shut again. Her mother refused to let her go. "You're too young for television," she warned, then added that show business was a world of sinners. So and stayed behind, finishing school, enduring another year in a cramped apartment with a mother clinging to religion like a lifeline against her own truths. Years later, Anne would say simply, "I did my time with my mother. I was ready." At 18, she called her agent. "Send the ticket. I'm flying out." And she did, away from her past, toward a world where she could be someone else. Or maybe, for the first time, truly herself. Hollywood welcomed her with open arms. In the soap Another World, and portrayed twin sisters, mirror images of each other, reflecting her own fractured identity. The person she was, and the person she longed to be. The role earned her an Emmy nomination. Soon came her first major film, Donnie Brasco in 1997, opposite Johnny Depp. Critics praised her, and some whispered that it wasn't the A-list star who stole the spotlight. It was Anne. "If I could change anything," the screenwriter later said, "I would have written more and into the film." But fame is no remedy for pain. It's just a brighter light, one that makes the scars under your skin impossible to hide. In her candid memoir, Call Me Crazy, published in 2001, and Heche invites readers behind the shimmering curtain of fame and into a reality far stranger than any Hollywood script. It's a world where celebrity intersects with voices from another dimension, where love becomes an act of defiance against public scorn. At the height of her rising career, during the filming of Donnie Brasco, Anne began to hear a voice. She believed, without doubt, that it was the voice of God. But this wasn't just divine encouragement. The voice told her she was more than an actress, more than human. She was a celestial being. Her alter ego, Celestia, claimed to be both a manifestation of God and a reincarnation of Jesus Christ. Her mission, as dictated by the voice, was nothing less than to enlighten humanity. this revelation didn't immediately derail her momentum. In 1998, Heche landed what should have been a breakthrough role, starring opposite Harrison Ford in 6 Days, 7 Nights. It was poised to be her moment of triumph. But just before filming began, the studio, Touchstone Pictures, abruptly dropped her. Not because of her mystical beliefs or voices from above. The reason was more brutal and grounded, and had dared to walk the red carpet hand in hand with television host Ellen DeGeneres. For the gatekeepers of early 2000s Hollywood, that was too much. Her open same-sex relationship branded Heche as unmarketable. Ford was livid. He had personally chosen and over household names like Meg Ryan and Julia Roberts. He demanded her return to the project, and the studio complied. But the damage was done. Hollywood had taken a step back. Her name quietly slipped onto the industry's informal blacklist as one half of the first openly gay celebrity couple to command global headlines, the so-called gay superstars. Still, Heche kept working. That same year, she starred in Return to Paradise and Psycho alongside Vince Vaughn. Whispers began to swirl, not just about their performances, but about a spark off-screen. Though Anne was still in a public relationship with Ellen, the talk on set told a different story. Between Thailand and Maui, between scenes and studio trailers, Heche and Vaughn were said to be inseparable, bonded like industrial glue. In New York, they no longer hid their closeness, holding hands, embracing, stepping out together in plain view. One source claimed that after a steamy dance at the Red Eye Grill, the two left the restaurant wrapped around each other like ribbon on a parcel. Some suggested the romance was a performance itself, a cover to deflect attention from her real relationship with DeGeneres. Years later, Heche would reflect on that time with disbelief. People told me I wasn't getting roles because I was gay. How can that possibly destroy a career? I still don't understand. In an interview with Los Angeles magazine, Anne admitted she may not have known who she truly was. I'm something else entirely, she said. Even I can't define it. Maybe she didn't know what she was, but the world knew who she was. A woman who walked a razor's edge between the spotlight and her shadowed truth. Elusive, conflicted, and fiercely original. A person who dared to be herself in a world that punishes those who defy the script. And Heche's life was a whirlwind of extremes. Fame and disgrace, love and betrayal, a desperate search for truth, and silent screams buried so deep no one heard them, until she chose to speak them aloud. When Anne began filming a documentary about the stand-up tour of her then-partner Ellen DeGeneres, she had no idea how much her own life was about to change. Behind the camera was cinematographer Coleman Laffoon. At first, it was just work, capturing the lights and shadows of a comedy show. But somewhere between takes, something shifted. A quiet connection formed between them, one that changed everything. Slowly, Anne realized her love for Ellen was fading, and along with it, the person she thought she was began to disappear. In her 2001 memoir, she made a stunning confession. For most of her life, she believed she was insane, not as a metaphor but as a literal truth. Behind Hollywood's glossy facade was a woman waging an invisible war with herself. She rejected the religion of her childhood, built an alternate reality, and retreated into what she called the fourth dimension, a place where pain couldn't touch her. There, she became Celestia, a different self forged to survive. Years later, her career in freefall and her strength nearly gone, and turned to unconventional methods in a final attempt to heal, body-based therapy and psychedelics. And in doing so, she went deeper than most would ever dare, into the darkest corners of memory. There, under layers of time, she unearthed the image of her father, Donald Joe Heche, in an emotional interview with Larry King, and accused him of sexually abusing her as a child. Her words were not just an admission, they were a survivor's cry broadcast to the entire country. When asked how that could be possible, given that her father had been gay, Anne answered with chilling clarity, "I don't think he was just gay. I think he was a deviant, and he was trying to hide it." The reaction was polarizing. Some believed her, others did not. Among the doubters was her own mother, a deeply religious woman who publicly rejected Anne's account. Even when presented with medical evidence, her response was denial. "It's just a rash from poor nutrition," she said, even in the face of festering wounds that symbolized years of silence. On an online forum, Anne's mother wrote of her daughter's book, "I'm searching for a place in these pages, a place where I, as her mother, don't feel defiled. But I can't find it amidst the lies and blasphemy. And so what once was a family fell apart. But maybe something else was born in its place, the unvarnished truth, not offered in search of forgiveness, but in pursuit of freedom." And told her story because silence had become unbearable. And in her voice echoed not just the testimony of one actress, but the pain of countless others, those who, like her, carried hidden wounds for far too long. Her honesty didn't make her a hero. It didn't erase the scars. But it was a beginning, fragile, raw, and necessary, a first step toward healing. She always fought to tell her truth, even when it meant laying her wounds bare for the world to see. And Heche was never afraid of being controversial. There was a trembling vulnerability in her voice, and in her eyes, a haunting shadow of a childhood she spent years trying to understand, forgive, and survive. But when she finally chose to speak about her past, about abuse, about her mother, her words didn't just fracture her family, they shattered public perception. Her sister publicly challenged the memories and shared, claiming even and herself had questioned them in the past. "I don't believe her recollections of our father are accurate," she stated, coming to their mother's defense. And with unwavering certainty, she added, "Mom didn't know. That's simply not true. Absolutely not." But Anne wasn't looking for validation. She was seeking liberation, a reckoning with herself. And she did it on her own terms. In an interview with the New York Times, she didn't flinch. "My mother had a tragic life. 3 of her 5 children are dead. Her husband is gone. And her efforts to cure homosexuality, to me, were just a way of avoiding the truth, of denying pain." The bitter irony? Anne's mother, Nancy Heche, had become a Christian therapist promoting so-called healing from homosexuality. But Anne didn't see that as a religious mission. To her, it was denial in disguise, an attempt to erase what couldn't be endured. Still, Anne didn't break. Her path was jagged, difficult, but creatively defiant. She wrote, she performed. In one of her own short films, she played a porn actress with Bible verses carved into her skin. "It's a metaphor for my life, for how I feel it," she said. It was as if she were carving her truth onto the screen with a scalpel. For a while, things seemed quieter. In the early 2000s, Anne married cinematographer Coleman Laffoon. For a moment, there was peace. A home, a child, a sense of calm. But the calm didn't last. In 2006, while filming the series Men in Trees, she met actor James Tupper, and everything changed. What looked like a light romantic show turned into a real-life tragicomedy. Both Anne and James began divorce proceedings. Another storm. Their relationship ignited quickly. Her divorce from Laffoon was finalized in early 2007 and cost her over $500,000. Though she had walked away, paid the price for freedom, her mental health once again began to falter. Still, Anne pushed forward. In 2009, she returned to headlines with Spread, a provocative, sexually charged film co-starring Ashton Kutcher. This time, it wasn't her words making news, but her body. She gave herself to the screen again, as if daring the public. "Look, this is me too." And Heche's life wasn't a tale of rising to stardom. It was a chronicle of surviving herself, of fighting for the right to feel, to fall, to get it wrong, and to rise again. And most of all, to be heard. In Hollywood, memories of Anne Heche are as vivid and unpredictable as the woman herself. A force of nature, fierce on the inside and out. She was never one to choose the easy path, and it seemed she always knew her life would be anything but quiet. As an adult, she shed shame like old skin, no longer afraid of her body, her boldness, or her raw honesty. In one interview, reflecting on a provocative scene she filmed with Ashton Kutcher, she confessed with a trace of regret, "I went further in that film than ever before. Why didn't I do this when I was 22? But everything she believed happened when it was meant to. Determined to reignite her career, Heche returned to the stage where applause still found her. She took roles in indie films, appeared in television shows, and stepped into a new creative rhythm. Beside her during those years was actor James Tupper, her partner both on-screen and in life. In the world of independent cinema, she finally found something Hollywood had long denied her: respect and belonging. But the storm within her was as fierce as the one she projected on screen. In a podcast alongside the director of Catfight, what started as a conversation about their latest film spiraled into chaos. Her eccentricity proved too much even for a show known for its unpredictability. They were asked to leave the studio, yet this was not the tragedy that would change everything. August 2022, Los Angeles. She was behind the wheel of her Mini Clubman. No one knows what drove her that day. Fear? Despair? A flash of impulse? The car crashed into a garage. She reversed and sped off. Moments later, another accident. She collided with a Jaguar, again not stopping. The final minutes of her life unraveled like a fever dream, ending in one last terrifying image. A doorbell camera captured her car racing past before a violent, sickening crash, and drove straight into a home at full speed. The vehicle pierced nearly 30 feet into the house, as if trying to vanish from this world, and got stuck. Almost immediately, the fire erupted. Flames swallowed the space. The structure groaned and splintered. No one realized a person, let alone a star, was trapped in the wreckage. It took 45 agonizing minutes and nearly 60 firefighters to extract her from the burning vehicle. When they did, she was still alive. Cameras captured her struggling on the stretcher, fighting the medics, the restraints, and perhaps fate itself. But then consciousness slipped away and never returned. She fought for 9 days in the hospital. 9 long, silent days, and Heche was gone. But before the end, she had one last truth to share. People ask why I'm so open in my stories. Because I grew up surrounded by lies and denial, and I am a child of truth and love. She left behind 2 sons, and the memory of a woman who lived not perfectly, but fully, fiercely, until her final breath.